No, that's enough.
I know.
As long as it's not picking it up twice.
I know.
Hi.
Hi.
Carey, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Carey.
I think we are ready.
Hi, Carey.
How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
We have a few waivers that we had to grant last minute, just to let you know. So I'll
Yes,
go ahead
yes,
and
yes.
announce
Okay,
it.
good.
So
Carey.
we ran a little bit late, but I wanted to welcome everyone. Today is the June 16th, 2025 Parks and Environment Committee for Manhattan Community Board 7. And I'm Daria, and this is Natasha. We're the co-chairs. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda. I need a second for the, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. So the motion is passed, the agenda is adopted. I just wanted to say that tonight we granted waivers to 2 committee members. The first is Rachel McLaren and the other is Ethel Sheffer. And the waivers were granted for unexpected travel. So I'm also pleased that I wanted to introduce some of the new members here tonight. We have Lottie Almonte, is that right? And we have Hayden Brockett.
Sure.
I was wondering if you guys could just take a quick moment to do a brief introduction, of your background and your interest in parks. We just wanted to get to know you a little bit better, and we're really happy that you're here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Either one.
You go first.
How about you?
So I was born and raised in the Upper West, literally like 100 feet from Central Park. I was a volunteer with Doris at the Central Park Conservancy for, since I can remember, maybe since I was like 10, 11. Doris Parker, sorry, Charlie Parker's wife. I don't know. She lived, they all lived right by where I grew up. So just, I've always, just helped and volunteered whenever possible. Cleaning up the park, volunteer days, stuff like that. So the park was a very integral part of my upbringing in the neighborhood. As far as being on the board, it's a sign of the times. Like the times has everybody thinking about how they can contribute to the sustainability of community, peace and tranquility, sustaining family. It's like the people that your neighbors are your family, they're your village. So it's, yeah.
Thank you.
It's all of that. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Tough act to follow. My name is Hayden Brockett. I moved to New York in 2018, lived in Harlem for the first couple of years, and then the Upper West Side for the last, 5 years now. And my wife and kids and I live at 107 of Broadway, and we're daily parks users, but it really is the environment side of the Parks and Environment Committee that got me into the board. Like you said, it's a sign of the times, but I really got passionate about air quality and the fact that there is a lot of unnecessary pollution from trucks and buses, and yes, in fact, cars as well. And so that is what got me sort of motivated through the Citizens Air Quality program. But then, as a user of Riverside Park and my favorite New York City park, Broadway malls, every day, I am, growing to see more and more of the importance of the parks. Central Park was where I started my New York journey. My dog and I would walk to the North Woods every day, and it was lovely. But now that I'm on Broadway, I go the other direction to Riverside. So that and the Broadway malls have a dear place in my heart.
Thank you.
Thank you. So welcome, guys. We also have another member, John Schochat. Schochat. He was unable to attend tonight, but we will meet him soon. So this
Sorry, you're a new member of the board.
she's part of the budget.
Oh, you
Yes.
are. Okay.
I can introduce myself.
Yes,
now.
yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Nandita Venkatesan. I have been living in New York for 2 years now, in the Upper West Side for 2 years as well. So I joined the board as a whole in May, and I'm on the budget committee with Carey. So I'm very excited, budget and health and human services. So if you guys are at any of those meetings, I'll see you there as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have 2 agenda items, neither of which require resolutions. So just also as a reminder, please stick around after we discuss the agenda items. We just have a couple of things to talk about in the old business and new business. So thank you. Today we have on the as our first agenda item is a joint with budget and strategy. We have Carey and we also have Nandita, and they are from the Budget and Strategy Committee. I just wanted to welcome you guys. You guys are going to be here to present a discussion about the district needs and the budget priorities for fiscal year 2027. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So welcome. You guys can go ahead and take it away.
Sure, and thank you, Daria and Natasha, for having us. We wanted to stop by at this point in the cycle, sort of to provide a brief overview of what it is that Budget and Strategy is doing, how our committee works, what we're focused on, and how that relates to this committee in particular. So there are 2 main documents that Budget and Strategy is responsible for putting together. The first is the District Needs Statement, a document that is required by the city charter that really sets out what the community's priorities are, which programs, initiatives, and just issues in the neighborhood we are most focused on having the city improve. And in that document, there's a section that's related to parks and the environment. And so we have a narrative description of what our top concerns are, what our most pressing issues are. And related to that, the committee is responsible for putting together specific budget requests, line items that either deal with the capital or the expense budget that are requests to the city agencies for very specific improvements that we want to see in our neighborhood. And we typically submit it's been about a half dozen requests related to parks and the environment on a given year. And so we're here now because the district needs statement and our budget requests, they're due in the early fall. And over the summer, our committee works to really put together the DNS as a whole and to work through the specific budget requests. And so at this point in the cycle, we had 3 specific asks of your committee that we wanted everybody to start thinking about. First, we had circulated to the chairs the district needs statement as it relates to the committee, and we'd appreciate a fresh set of eyes on it just to make sure that it's current and reflective of what are our top of mind concerns for parks and the environment. And the second request is to look at the old budget requests that we had submitted in the past year. There are a couple of them which I think remain outstanding. Certainly, we always have a request for additional public restrooms in the park. We've requested, improvements for ADA accessibility, certainly Riverside Park. And there are some others which I think may have been partially but not fully addressed, things like improvements to the interior paths. And so we want to make sure that all of those are still current needs and that we, if there's anything new related to those, that we're updating those requests to reflect the most current information that we have. So that's one aspect. And the final thing that we appreciate if everybody could think about is whether there are new requests related to the parks, the environment in the district that we should be submitting as new line items, new requests for the expense or capital budget. And we're going to take any new ideas that the committee has. And what we do is next month, we start meeting with the staff of city council members, Councilwoman Brewer, Councilman Rayo, and working through where their priorities are, what they think we're going to be able to get funded, and raise these issues to them also. And then, for the rest of the summer, we work to put all of this together so it gets submitted in the early fall to the city agencies. And we try to think of this as really, it's an opportunity for advocacy for the community. It's beneficial because for each of our budget line items that we submit, the agency considers them and submits a very specific response directly to that request. So it's an opportunity to put an issue front and center in front of an agency. And they'll send us their responses towards the end of the year. We'll circulate those, and then at the beginning of next year, we'll submit our replies to them. And that's the budget cycle as a whole and how it unfolds. So that's mostly what we wanted to ask for help with. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Can I ask, what's the process for getting that information back to you?
Yeah, we'll go over that.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
go over that. Do you want me, Ethel, did you have a question?
Yes, and also, thank you. And also a comment. I'm just pleased and thrilled to hear the approaches of our new members and of the budget requests. Having been I'm a long time member, and I used to in the old days also have to prepare the budgets. I have just a couple of things to say. First of all, meeting in the summertime is a good, when the board doesn't meet, is a good time to study and maybe look back at what we have done and what we haven't done. But I urge you, and I think those who have spoken know this, and I'm just thrilled with their commitment. I believe that the board sometimes, maybe too often, repeats certain requests that have not always been sharpened or looked at again. One particularly, I often think of when I look at it, let's say police, and let's say police overtime and money for them to be able to have that kind of flexibility. I often think that shouldn't be said each time, but it should be more creative, or maybe it's too easy to say, we need more police. I'm just suggesting, and I'm sure the people coming from the community and their commitment and intelligence, I think that we should try to make our appeals and our expression of interest and need, some of it repeated, but to come up with others that have not been focused enough in the past and just seem to be repeats. But
Thank you,
I
Ethel.
wish you the best, and I feel it, and I would just say that if there is any help I can give, and as someone with some experience, but not as much and not as much knowledge, I think, as the new members have, because you're here and new, but I so welcome and appreciate, and if there's any help, I would like to be able to do it, and I thank you very much in advance.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Ethel. I think I'll just go ahead and I'll provide some context, and then we can open it up to a further discussion. So in the past, what we've done is we've kind of always worked, ever since I've been co-chair, of a previous documents. And we were always approached at this time of the year, and we were always asked to take a look at what's already been there and what comments the agencies have made on the issues that were already highlighted and put in and spat back at us. We were also encouraged, of course, to look for new issues. And on those new issues, we were always told, as much specifics as possible
Yes.
is going to help our case. So if you can get photographs or numbers or data, all that is going to help. So what we normally do is, there are like three or four key entities that we deal with. We deal with the Department of Parks and Recreation, DSNY, Central Park Conservancy, and Riverside Park Conservancy. So, I see all these, you've sent us the list. I've seen them. What we're going to do is Daria and I will collect whatever is relevant to each of those entities. Like there are a few things in there that are relevant to Riverside Park. We'll send them to John Harold, who's at the Conservancy, ask them to take a look again, like what work has been done. And I know that in Riverside Park, for instance, the Conservancy and the Parks Department are doing a lot of work very quietly under the radar. So, for all you know, some items may have already come off. There's a lot of work being done on the walkways, for instance. And similarly, we'll send messages to Steve Simon at the Parks Department and Central Park Conservancy as well, and see. And one example of like sometimes it's new issues and sometimes it's existing issues which may have changed. So one of our long-standing requests has been for more parks enforcement personnel, PEP officers in our district. What we found out recently, in fact, Central Park Conservancy made a very big announcement that they had come up with this plan for a Central Park Rangers Corps, which has been self-funded by the Conservancy. And it's a very wide-ranging team of people, a substantial team of people covering a wide-ranging number of issues that maybe overlap with the PEP officers that they have already. So, we could approach them and say, do you still need the PEP officers, or can we take that request off? And, PEP officers are very few and very high in demand, so can we maybe route them somewhere else within our DNS? So, there's that example. An example of a new item would be Daria and I, we were working on this issue of a restroom in Riverside Park Conservancy. You can never have enough restrooms in any of our parks or playgrounds, but very specifically, one problem that's been highlighted is up by the new pickleball courts. I forget what the cross street is, but there's the pickleball, the skate park, it's a very, very busy area suddenly, and there are no restrooms there. The nearest one is really far away, and they were trying to do something with a mobile unit, and I'm not sure how well it's working, but so something very specific like that. Or for the Conservancy and the Parks Department to look into alternatives, like instead of a brick and mortar type of structure for restrooms, something more temporary or, functional, definitely situation for restrooms. So that is the process of us collecting information. We start working off of the document that has already been shared with us from last year. Then we collect everything that applies to these different entities, and Daria and I will reach out to them. And depending on what information they give us, we'll get back to the committee. And in the meantime, as far as the committee is concerned, we would like your help in identifying whatever you see around you, any sort of issues or anything that you may know of that requires funding. But at the same time, Carey, maybe you could clarify what the numbers should be. Like I know I've approached the Friends of Birdie Square earlier. I approached them just last year, and they had very specific requests. They were very specific. So that was the good news. The bad news was that they were very small items, like in dollar terms, they were very small, like $10,000 or something, So then we were told, well, that's not a DNS item. That's actually more of a local council person item. So if you could clarify that, what kind of numbers should we be looking at? And also, what is the deadline? Do you have a certain set of deadlines that, the first draft by this, or, those things could be helpful for us?
Sure. And to take the last question first, we're aiming to have edits to the DNS in by the end of the month, if possible. That takes a little bit more time for us to work with, and so the sooner we can have those, the better. For the budget requests, it's around the same neighborhood, but it can extend until the middle of July, the end of July if need be. But the more information we have, sooner the better, because we want to be able to have the dialogue with members of the council and raise certain issues and have that conversation before we get to August, where it's difficult to set things up with anybody. In terms of the cutoff limits, the approach that I take, at least at this point, is it's better for us to know what's out there. If there is something that is meritorious, that requires funding, better to flag it for us rather than say anything below, X dollars, we're not going to even hear. If nothing else, we can have the conversation with members of the council of, this is something that we're hearing. Is this something that you're able to take care of? Is this something that would be helpful for us to flag in our budget requests? So I think it's better to gather those as a whole, and then we can
Right.
go from there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Did you have something?
Oh, I had a question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. please.
Was a needs assessment conducted by a team of people or for the budget requests? We do it every year. No, I got that.
This is the team. So we
No.
rely on the committees more than
Yeah.
anything else to be the eyes and ears that are filtering up, but there aren't specific needs assessments.
Like
that
a
are
data team, like a data collection team that conducts a needs assessment across or a listening tour. Okay,
No, and if
that was the question.
different committees have different approaches to
Okay.
it, and and have different different lines of communications that are open with various stakeholders. And so, the more conversations that the committee can have, the better. But we try to rely very much on the committees to do that, to have those conversations. So it isn't the budget and strategy committee trying to work across the whole
No, I
portfolio.
understand that. I was just trying to understand organizationally,
Mhm.
if every committee had a data person or a needs assessment group that then funneled information to your committee. That, I'm just trying to understand structurally and organizationally what it looks like and what it sounds like, so that I can wrap it around my own head. So my apologies.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the office has done, we do try to rely on census data and to go back to that. And there are certain other types of data sets that the city, state, and federal governments publish. And so at different intervals, they'll do trainings. We've had somebody who works with census data for the census come in and make training available to all board members. And that's generally the most detailed data set that we try to leverage in putting this together. But that's when we can.
And when you put it together, is it aligned to the priorities that are identified by the people holding the purse strings?
No.
Well, this is the opportunity for us to say, here are our priorities to the people that are holding the purse strings. So it's
Right, so case in point, like there are buckets of money that we were talking about this earlier, different mayors have like their North Stars, right? And within our community, within every community, those North Stars exist, and are we aligning the request in that priority order so that we can get the bigger bang for the buck is what I'm asking.
So we typically, the approach that I think we've generally tried to take is we're trying to surface the things that us as a group, as a committee, as a board, consider to be important. And to the extent those are aligned, the better. But
That's what I'm saying.
we always try to be our own independent entity as much as we can. So, if there are certain things to identify that are there, then we do that. But it isn't, and usually to the extent those are things that those are usually end up being things that are in the budget to begin with, where they'll get funded by, in the mayor's preliminary budget, that they'll identify that those are things. And so it isn't as necessary for us to say, we need more here or there, because it's usually already reflected in the underlying documents.
Thank you.
Daria, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Because sometimes in the DNS, the response to a request is just go talk to your elected officials. And so does it make sense for us to go back to the agencies, let them know this, and then resubmit this regardless, or so it comes from different angles? Or is this something that that we have to pull because it doesn't have as much of an impact as other things? Our sense is that we continually place it in there, but I don't know with the response like that, what the next steps are typically. when that is the response to one of the requests we put in.
And if it's otherwise a meritorious request, that is something that we would want to submit. We tend to resubmit it even if what they're telling us is go talk to your electeds, because if nothing else, it puts it back on their radar to see if it is something that they can incorporate into the existing budget. And sometimes, strangely enough, the response changes over the years, where, you know, in one year they'll say talk to your local electeds, and then in the next year they'll say we're partially funding this. So I do think it's helpful to reflag those issues as long as they remain current.
Do you still want the committee to give you bullet points rather than writing out a whole essay?
I actually would prefer if the edits to the DNS are done in a narrative form that you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be bullet points,
Because Roberta
so.
always said that she has to input it and the style has to be specific. Is that not the case anymore? Or?
For me, it's more helpful to already have it out in sentences. Whatever's easiest for whoever has the pen. So for some people, it's you know, sometimes easier just to write the paragraph out, but I'm certainly happy to have the committee take the first pass on that, and if it's, you know, and we can massage the language after that.
Yeah, so I saw that there were a number of things that did seem to be sort of old holdovers.
Yes.
We have a lot of big belly trash cans right now in Strauss Park, and that's great. They're good. They're there.
Mhm.
Just take one example.
Yeah. And most of our requests also, as a whole, are focused on parks, but environment is also an aspect of it. So if there are things that we're aware of to focus on, that can also be something that we're emphasizing through this process.
Yeah, I noticed that you don't tend to interface with the DEP.
Yeah, that is something that we haven't traditionally done, but we could do more of that. Anything else?
No, just thank you all. And if you have any other questions.
So get you the edits by the end of the month, and we'll figure out how to figure out what those edits are. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the.
Oh,
yeah.
Hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow at the potluck.
All right.
That's right.
Okay, bye.
I'll walk out with you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you're at 400.
Yes.
Yeah, my girlfriend Lorna lives in that building.
Lorna.
All right, we're moving on to the next item on the agenda. The title of the item is, it's just a discussion. It's a discussion with the Parks Department regarding the Parks Concessions Process. RFPs, RFBs, and sole source contracts. This is something that people in the community and people on our board even have been concerned about recently. It's been brought up. I don't see anybody else online from the board apart from people from within our own committee. Is that correct? No, I meant from the board, but no, okay. All right, but we do have David Cerrone from the Parks Department. Thank you so much, David, for coming to our meeting again, and thanks for your time tonight.
Hi, thank you for having me. And I'm here joined by Alex Hahn, our Chief of Concessions.
Yeah. Thank you. Did you say you had a presentation to share?
Yes. Is it okay if I try to share my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
go ahead.
Okay. Can you see everything?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. Once again, I'm David Cerrone. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Business Development and Special Events at New York City Parks. I'm joined by my colleague, Alex Hahn, who's the Chief of Concessions for NYC Parks. Alex, do you want to say hello?
You're muted.
Still muted.
Okay, well, if Alex is there and he's listening, I just want to say a special thank you to Alex for calling in while he's off for part
Hello,
of this
can you all hear me?
presentation.
Yeah.
Hey, Alex, we can hear you.
Okay, great.
Okay, so Alex is here also to answer any questions that may come up. But as we're here talking about the RFP process, we just prepared a few slides that we thought we'd share with everyone to help give an overview of the process. For folks, which is most of you, who are not doing this all the time, it is like everything else in government. It certainly has its unique elements to it. And things that to Alex and I, we deal with all the time. So we're always happy to explain it. But we wanted to kind of give everyone here just a base level understanding of how we work in the context of the larger city process for concessions. So I think first and foremost to start, when we start talking about concessions, whenever a process related question comes up, other than our experience having done this for many years, Alex and I always go back to the rules. And in this case, we're talking about Title 12 of the Rules of the City of New York, the Concession Rules, Section 1-13. These are the rules for the City of New York that govern the solicitation of any concession on city land, whether it's through an RFP, a request for proposal, an RFB, a request for bid, or a sole source. So we issue solicitations for hundreds of concessions each year, but these rules, the concession rules, apply to any city agency that issues concessions. Just so that's clear, they're not our rules, they're not Parks's rules, they're the city's rules. We don't administer them, we follow them. And Alex and I and the team of many wonderful individuals at the Parks Concession Office work very hard to make sure that we're following those rules. So effectively, the first thing that we do is we start drafting solicitations well in advance of the prior existing contract's expiration. It's not unusual for us to do something 2 years in advance, a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the complexity. As you might imagine, the city process is, it's thorough. It is not always the most efficient. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can ahead of time to avoid any expirations of existing contracts before we have a new operator that can go in place. So before an RFP is issued, Parks always drafts it and we send it to the city's office, the mayor's office of contract services, otherwise known as MOCS. There is no RFP that is released before it's reviewed and approved by MOCS. So this is part of the standard course of business for us. Once MOCS has approved the RFP, we've answered their questions, if any were asked. We issue a public notice of our intent to issue an RFP to the applicable borough president and the community board as well. So in many instances, if it's in Community Board 7, your community board will receive that notice. Sometimes if it's a new concession, not sometimes, all the time, we will also call you and we will ask you if you'd like us to come meet with you to explain whatever the new concession is. And then we also let other local elected officials know. And in that notice, we cite a specific 40-day waiting period before the RFP is issued to incorporate any feedback that we receive from any of the stakeholders that we've sent the notice to. That 40-day waiting period is the minimum. Oftentimes, it will be a little bit longer, either because of feedback or just because the city process can take a little bit longer. Parks will also issue the RFP and will have information about the history of the concession, the term of the concession. Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? We can issue up to 20 years in an RFP without going through any special measures. The guidelines for the proposal and the specifics rating criteria, which I will touch on in just a few minutes. Once the RFP is released, we do outreach to potential respondents. So we'll advertise the RFP in the city record. We'll also work with this SBS, the Small Business Services Agency, to get the word out. At times, we'll also work with the Economic Development Corporation, and we'll also advertise in MWBE publications such as the Minority Commerce Weekly. And this is in addition to some of the stuff that we'll do in our own press office, issuing a press release sometimes to get the word out, to make sure as many different entities that might be interested in responding to this RFP are aware. We post the RFP on our website. We have an extensive list of potential concessionaires who have expressed interest in Parks opportunities. And additional outreach is given to concessionaires in the field. So what that means is over the many years that we've been doing this work, we've accumulated a list of people that are interested in very specific concession types. And as long as they say they're, happy to stay on the list, we will let them know. So if it's a food service operator, we'll let them know about food service opportunities. If they operate a marina, it'll be about a marina. In the case of ice rinks, it'll be ice rinks. But we won't stop there. We don't just respond to the people who reach out to us. We also look for people who are well-known in their field and reach out to them to make sure that they know that this opportunity is available. And then we also host virtual proposer meetings and in-person site tours. And that can be done in larger groups, or if, depending on someone's schedule, if they can't make it the day that we have planned to do the site tour, of course, we'll seek to be flexible with them and, do everything we can to arrange a separate site tour. So submissions of proposals. We've gotten the approval from the mayor's office to release the RFP. We've done everything we can to get the word out to make sure that every proposer or potential proposer is aware of the RFP. We have a deadline. The proposers are due on that deadline. They all have to be submitted at a stated proposal deadline, and they have to be addressed to a specific email address. And they can also be brought in hand, and they go into and they could be go into a box. We do prefer that everything be done electronically. And in the RFP, we also state the ratings criteria. So we talk about capital investments and improvements, the planned operations, the operating experience and financial capability, a fee offer, and integrated sustainability. So this is the core criteria, effectively for the vast majority, effectively for all of our RFPs. This is going to be the criteria that the proposals are rated against. And then we create an evaluation committee, so a ratings selection committee. So we have that. It consists of Parks employees who are accountable to the commissioner, and they follow all the city concession rules. Before they begin rating the proposals, they will be briefed on the rules. They'll be given the materials that they need in order to go through that rating, and all questions that a rater may have are going to be answered by the project manager. And then they review the proposals and they assign the ratings consistent with the stated rating criteria in the RFP. And then that process, once everything is rated, there will be proposer meetings. There'll be requests for clarifying information, and there'll be opportunities for proposers to improve their fee offer to the city. So this can be an iteration. There can be multiple meetings. There can be more than one request for clarifying information. There are instances where there can be, more than one opportunity for proposers to improve their offer to the city. So this can take some time. But at the conclusion of that process, Parks will proceed with an award to the winning proposer whose proposer meets the best interest of the city, and of course is the highest rated proposer from the number of entities that's submitted a response to that RFP. And then on the next steps, Parks will negotiate a license agreement. This is our contract with the highest rated proposer. And of course, that text is also reviewed by the city's law department. So it has to be reviewed and approved by the law department. And there's no one instance where Parks is doing anything unilateral. There's just a number of checks and balances built into the system. Now, when we talk about the license term, if the license term is more than 10 years, or if the fees to the city are greater than $100,000 in any given contract year, then that agreement is subject to a public hearing of the Franchise Concession Review Committee, which is the committee that reviews all of the concessions that come before it. And so about 3 weeks before the FCRC hearing, Parks issues a notice of public hearing informing the applicable borough president, the community board, and the local elected officials of the public hearing, as well as the term of the contract and the financial details of the contract. The full license agreement is posted on our website, and it's available for anyone to review. And at the hearing, any member of the public can either submit testimony related to the contents of the license agreement. They can do that in writing and have it read aloud and for the record, or they can come and they can verbally provide that statement themselves, depending on their schedule. So we've seen both happen. Either one is pretty common. At the conclusion of the hearing, after all the parties have signed the agreement, it's sent to the New York City's Office of Controller for registration. The controller has 30 days to review the registration package for the contract. And then only after the controller has registered that contract can it take effect. Now, there are instances where the controller could ask a question and we would, of course, answer it if they, let's just say something happened and we were missing an insurance document. They might say, hey, you didn't have the property insurance document. You need to submit that. So then we'll submit it. And that could also, contribute to a little bit of a pause in the process. But I just want to give some kind of color to, to the back and forth that can take place. But once it is registered, then the agreement formally takes effect. So with regard to Woolman Rink, I just wanted to go over the timeline that we have in the event that there are any questions. In May of 2024, Parks began drafting this RFP. In July of 2024, we sent the RFP to the Mayor's Office of Contract Services to review. In October of 2024, we issued a public notice to the borough president, to the community boards surrounding Central Park, including CB7, of our intent to issue an RFP for Woolman Rink. On November 13th, the RFP was issued after the 40-day waiting period. On December 17th, that was the initial due date for proposals, but that was revised to January 10th, 2025. This is a very common occurrence. When we have site tours, when we have proposer meetings, oftentimes people who attend either the site tour or the proposer meeting will ask questions. And we will do an addendum because we want to make sure that any question that was asked by someone who attended one of these meetings is documented correctly and is there available for anyone else who is interested in submitting a response to have that same information. And then during those times, if we give them more information, sometimes they ask for more time, and that's not unusual. So when that happens, we will give people more time, which is another reason we try to start this, with enough lead time so we can build in things like having the due date for proposals extended by 3 weeks or so. So again, that's pretty common, but that's part of the process, and it's something that we'll see. And currently, right now, the proposals are under review. So Alex and I are, again, really happy to be here to kind of talk through the process. Unfortunately, we can't answer questions related to this current solicitation in terms of any award or anything like that, because this is an ongoing review. But we will do our best to answer any other related questions that come up. Alex, did I miss anything? Anything else you would like to add?
Muted again.
You're muted.
Doesn't look muted.
It's not muted, it's just.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, David. Sorry, apologies. I'm having some tech issues because we mostly use Teams here at the city. But I just wanted to add on to what David was saying is that this is still an ongoing process, and we just wanted to make sure everybody was just aware that the agency is still required to ensure preserve the competitive nature of the overall RFP process. So we may not be able to answer all of the questions that you'd all like to ask, but that's why. Thanks.
Thank you. That was a really great presentation, and I was hoping you could share that with us, with the office, and be, if it's okay with you.
Of course. I'll email to you this evening.
Thank you. So, I guess you brought up Woolman Rink. So this item was put on the agenda in response to concern and some outcry in the community and on the board about Woolman Rink and what's happening with its RFP. But to be very clear, this is, as they've clarified, this is not a discussion about that particular RFP. This is just for us to understand the process. And in understanding the process, hopefully we can understand where this particular RFP has been and where it's going. And if you have any questions generally about the RFP process, sole sourcing process,
Yes.
please do ask. But, they are, our intention here is not to jeopardize the RFP process for Wallman or any other, anything else that the Parks Department has outstanding. So please do respect that. So I'll open it up to questions. And is there anybody in the room who
I
has?
have
Yes,
one.
Barbara.
Yeah, under what circumstance would the community board have the right to object to an applicant that you have chosen and we feel is not the right applicant? Or if we don't like that particular, let's say it's a vendor with something that smells, like a generator or something like that, what right do we have? And because in my knowledge of being on this board for a very long time, I don't remember ever having any input that went anywhere.
So that's a great question, and I think it comes down to what part of the process we're in. Ultimately, the award of the concession is pursuant to the ratings committee and the ratings committee and their evaluation of proposers. But we always care very much about feedback from the community, feedback from our partners in city government, and from any other stakeholders. So when we're talking about pre-award, one of the key places for feedback is that public hearing. So if there are concerns, as I had mentioned, if the contracted term is over 10 years, or if any individual fee is over $100,000, I can tell you, given the history of Wallman, that each year, it has paid over $100,000, and the term, generally speaking, is over 10 years. The one that we offered right now is for 20 years. There would be a public hearing, and there's an opportunity for anyone who has concerns or potential objections to raise those concerns and objections, for the record. And it's something that the city has to take into account. Just with regard to your other question about generators and things that are just kind of like operationally, I guess, impactful to quality of life. That generally happens after the agreement is started, and we have dealt with those sorts of issues. In particular, I'm thinking of an ice rink that we have in Staten Island, and it's more of a temporary ice rink where there are generators. There's a whole kind of like truck full of electric equipment that was brought in to help create the ice rink. And it disturbed a lot of homes. And so what we did is we worked with our team and with the concessionaire, and they ended up building an enclosure for the truck that absorbed a lot of the sound, so that the complaints would end, and that the neighbors wouldn't be disrupted by this loud disruptive sound. So at any point in the process, we're a public service agency. At the end of the day, Alex and I are public servants, and the agency cares very much about the feedback from the public, and we want to make people's lives more enjoyable and better when they're in parks or adjacent to parks. So we are always listening and doing everything we can to try and to respond to any concerns, whether it's concessions or the agency at large having anything to do with our parks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room? Yes, go ahead, Lottie.
How are members of the ratings committee selected? Is it a separate entity, or are they city employees?
They're all city employees, and they're all employed by NYC Parks. But Alex, do you want to go into that in a little bit more detail?
Sure. So if you were to take a look at the city's concession rules, the selection committee, our selection committees for parks consist of parks employees, and these are folks generally who have experience and familiarity with this particular concession and the location, and they also have relevant expertise in many cases on the overall operation of the site. So these are folks that are generally familiar. The selection committees are all impartial. All committee members are required to sign an affidavit that there is no conflict of interest, and that they will be able to score the proposals in a fair way, and they have no business dealings or personal conflicts with any of the proposers that may be involved in this particular or any RFP that they're a member of the committee for.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Daria, did you,
Yes. I wanted to understand if you could explain the difference between an RFP and RFB and sole source, and why sometimes a sole source contract would be, issued versus an RFP would be issued. You can explain it regarding related to Woolman Rink or in general. But I just thought maybe if you could explain that difference, we'd have a better understanding of why, you pursue one process over another.
Yeah, Alex, why don't you start, and then I may add to anything else that you say.
Sure. So let me start with the simplest form of award. It's called a request for bids. And the only selection criteria in a request for bids is the total overall fee offered to the city. No other criteria is considered. It's just what they offer for the overall term that's being offered in the RFP. Obviously, the high bidder for a concession and for any concession, the successful bidder or successful proposer would still need to pass a background check and ensure that they actually have the qualifications and the operating experience to operate the facility. But the selection process through an RFP is just the fee offer to the city. Moving on to the RFP process, it's a request for proposals, and so there are criteria that are set forth in the RFP, and there are relative weights that are assigned to each criteria that the committee is rating on. And we communicate that in the RFP document, so everyone knows that, typically, the criteria that David had mentioned were fee offer to the city, operating experience and financial capability, planned operations, proposed capital improvements, investments, and design. And then the last item would be sustainability by design. And so those are the 5 criteria for this particular RFP and in many of our RFPs. And so the committee will rate based on those criteria, and then there will be a score assigned, a maximum score for each category, and the committee will get to score each of those criteria, and then that's how a selection is made as part of the RFP process. So the proposer with the highest overall score out of those criteria is the proposer that we would seek to award the concession to. Now, keeping in mind that the proposer would still need to pass the background check and would still need to have, be determined a responsible proposer in accordance with the city's rules. And then the last item was a sole source. A sole source contract requires approval from the city's franchise and concession review committee, because what we're doing is we're not doing a competitive process. We're not doing an RFB. We're not doing an RFP. We're selecting one entity and, in lieu of that competitive process, and we're saying we want to negotiate an agreement with this entity because we feel that they're uniquely qualified to operate this concession. That means there are no other organizations out there who could do what they do, which, as you may guess, in the world of ice skating is pretty challenging. And I think David can speak more to some of the nuances to why we may feel that an entity is qualified or uniquely qualified, and it's best to seek FCRC approval to negotiate an agreement with them, because we would have to also explain why an RFP process would not be in the city's best interest. But David, do you want to talk more about that?
What I would add to that is they have to be uniquely qualified, and or they have to have a business deal that is to the best advantage of the city, effectively meaning that the business deal that they're offering the city would have to be so strong and compelling that the city could then justify that to all of the members of the FCRC, that this was so good that we could not achieve this outcome with a competitive process. So generally speaking, achieving the outcome through the competitive process is going to be the more likely way to go. Achieving it through a sole source is less common. In a case like Woolman, where we have done this competitively for 30 years, maybe a little bit more than that now, and we have, each and every time been able to cover all of the city's costs through a concession operation, there is no basis for us to say that it wouldn't be done through that process.
I think it's David's back.
Oh, okay.
Somebody's having fun.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Sorry, I have 3 kids at home who all have strong opinions about whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah, we all feel you.
Yeah, it sounds like my household. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
What percentage of your contracts are sole source versus like RFBs or RFPs? How rare is it?
I mean, it's definitely the smallest portion. I don't know, Alex. I don't want to hazard a guess. I mean, that's something we could follow up with you on. I don't know if you have a calculation.
We don't have that info, but I think maybe we can give you an example of where we feel an operator is uniquely qualified. And we'll do 2 examples. One is the ferry service to the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island from the Battery. So this is an iconic concession. This is what takes tourists and visitors to Ellis Island and Liberty Islands, which are both national parks properties. So they're not owned by the city; they're federal properties. In those cases, the National Park Service has a competitive process wherein they award a ferry operator, and that ferry operator is the only operator that can go pick up and drop off passengers at Liberty and Ellis Islands. No other company can do that except for the one that is selected through the National Park Service process. And so in that case, we go through a sole source process for whichever vendor that the National Park Service selects, and we say that they are uniquely qualified to operate this concession because they're the only company that can actually pick up and drop off passengers at Liberty and Ellis Island. So that is the type of justification when I say uniquely qualified, the only game in town kind of scenario where a sole source would be justified. Another sole source, and this is sort of an example here, is where a concession has historically, generated, income that was significantly lower than what an operator could recoup on their investment. So let's say, as David mentioned, the maximum number of years that we can award a concession is 20 years, right? Let's say a particular facility is going to cost, $60, $70, $80 million to renovate. However, historically, that concession has only generated 1 or 2, less than $2 million a year. Now, if you do the math, there is no way you can get to that $80 million number within that 20-year term. So if there is an entity out there that, is willing to invest that type of capital, not being interested in recouping any investment like that, that is something that we could consider a sole source for, because again, this is private dollars that they're bringing in to improve and renovate a city facility. And the sum that they're looking to use is not, any amount of money that could reasonably be generated through operating a concession, on their own. And so that is another kind of example where a sole source might be considered.
Yeah, and if I could just add on to that, because I think the latter example is really one that aligns closely to the Lasker Rink site, now the Davis Center, which is, I have to say, if anyone hasn't been there, please go when you can. It is, breathtaking and beautiful. That is a site, Lasker, when it was Lasker, that we ended up pairing with Wallman for over 20 years because we could not identify an operator to take it on its own. And that is a site that when it was being operated, generated about $1.2 million a year before any expenses. Of course, the expenses, can pile on quickly for something like an ice rink. And, over the 20-year term, that would have made a total income of about $24 million, I think, give or take a few $100,000 if my math is off. And, when you look at what happened there, the capital that was put in, that was $160 million project. If you're going to make $24 million in a year, and you've got a $160 million project, the numbers just don't add up. So at the former Lasker site, the current Davis Center, I think the way that we've always looked at it in Parks is, we have such a close relationship with the Central Park Conservancy. We work with them on a daily basis. We really enjoy that relationship. And the city, for this, this agreement, this was, we view it as a partnership. The city contributed $60 million to that site. Because even for a group like the Central Park Conservancy, which has achieved so much, it's still a lot of money. The city operates that site in the summertime. Right now, we're prepping it for pool season. We'll be operating the pool. We'll be staffing it with lifeguards. We'll be staffing it with maintenance operators. We'll be staffing it with filter plant operators. The city will be offering the summer school lunch program there. The city is paying for the electric year round. They're paying for the utilities, the water, any other utility year round. So we really view that as a partnership, but also something that we could not have achieved through an RFP process. So that really kind of, if it's helpful, is an example of when we would do a sole source. When the question comes up for Wallman, although it's an understandable question, we're looking at a site that in 1 year, they're going to gross 15, 16, 17 million dollars. When we play that out over 20 years, there's a sufficient amount of money to fund what is needed with regard to capital investments and other maintenance needs. And then the taxpayer money that went in to Lasker, now Davis, can be spared at a site like Wallman and can be put hopefully to other parks, that are in Manhattan and in other boroughs as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions online? I know that we have Ethel and Rachel. Or anybody from the public. If anybody has any questions, you may raise your hand. Okay. Any other follow-up questions over here? Well, thank you, Alex, and thank you, David, for joining us tonight. This was a really good, and I think it went a long way in clarifying a lot of things that were fuzzy for many of us. And maybe we'll call on you again in the fall, once we know the results of the RFP process at Wallman.
That sounds
thank
good.
you so much. Yeah.
And we'll send you the presentation. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your
All
time.
right.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.
All right. Now, I wanted to call on Matt Genrich. Matt, do you, I know that you're online. Is there any update or any announcements that you would like to make?
I guess I would just say, keep in mind as you're going through your budget priorities, a few sites that are already kind of in the works through design. So Frederick Douglass Playground is in design and will be reconstructed. I don't recall if that design was presented to the board already or not. If it hasn't, it will be. Annabella Vilas is Annabella Vilas is currently under construction. Verde Square is under design and will be reconstructed. And then the playground at Soul Bloom will be is in procurement now and will be going under construction sometime next winter or spring. As long as things move forward with that. A couple other things of note. I don't know if anyone from Riverside Park is on, but there's a ton of Summer Along the Hudson programming going on in Riverside Park. So check some of those events out. There's going to be a movie night at Playground 89 on, I wrote it down here, on July 17th. And then in Morningside Park coming up this week, we have a bunch of Juneteenth events. There's going to be an entertainment through the park in the morning, and then a movie night on the ball field there where they're going to be showing the movie Harriet. I know that's just a little bit outside of CB7, but Morningside Park and the ball field is right on the border of the district. So near some people that live in CB7. Those are the updates that I would have, but happy to answer any questions if anyone has any of them about parks in the district.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Matt, do you have any update on Dinosaur Playground? Somebody from the public is asking.
I don't, because I don't oversee the operations of Riverside Park. I don't know if is Kelly. Do you see Kelly Jordan and participant on the call? She sometimes she joins the CB meetings, but may not have been let in. Is it currently under construction now? I can a lot of times if you want updates for capital projects, where they are in the process, on the Parks Department website, there's something called the capital tracker, and that'll tell you where a project is either in design, coming along in procurement, which is the process where sites go out to bid for contractors to be able to be awarded a contract to do the reconstruction of a park or playground. And then after that, they go through design, or not through design, but through actual construction, which typically takes about a year.
Yeah.
And each of those elements are online for parks that are in that process in the Community Board 7.
All right. Okay, we'll look into that.
Before I log off here, I'll look at the capital tracker and see if I see any information on Dinosaur Playground for it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll be here for another few minutes. I think Alex Crawford, did you have your hand up?
No.
Okay. All right. So we had a couple of old and new business items.
Natasha, there actually is somebody named Amanda Orley who has their hand up.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, we just saw that. Go ahead, Amanda.
Hi, sorry, I'm the one who asked about Dino, and I've been looking at the website, like you had suggested, and it says it's in the design phase, but we go there every day and there's often a sign that says it's closed, and so it seems like they're about to do construction, and the finish date on the website says September 2025. So I was just curious, but I'll stay tuned.
Yes. All good questions, Amanda. If you wouldn't mind sending, our office email, an email with your contact details, we can get that information back to you. Just send it to our general office email address. Thank you. Okay. We had one new business item. We received a request from Central Park Conservancy for a special meeting over the summer. As you know, we take July and August off. But of course, if there's some special item, for instance, I know that the Preservation Committee does meet over the summer. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we do.
So we have traditionally never really had the need to meet in the summer, but CPC has come to us. There's an item that they're interested in. No, it's not CPC. It's actually Riverside Park Conservancy. It's the River Run Playground and the renovation of River Run Playground. So they would like to take it to, I think, LPC in September, so they are asking for a review in August, after August 15th. So what Daria and I are going to do is we'll send out a spreadsheet to all of you asking for your availability at the end of August, either via Zoom or in person. And we'd appreciate a response. We'll give you many different options. And then depending on what date falls, when we have like the most attendees potentially, we'll set that as a meeting date.
It's going to require a resolution, so we're gonna need a quorum. Yeah, so
Why didn't they
folks
come
need to
tonight?
be.
They weren't
weren't
ready, they weren't ready.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
nearly did actually, you know, we had put them on the agenda earlier, but then we had to take them off. Yeah,
Yeah, so the attendance has to be in person, so that's the reason.
Well, for me personally, I have no idea what I'll be doing in August, and I know I won't be here. But I don't even know if I'll be available. It's really hard to say.
Via Zoom.
Too much in advance what we're doing in August. You know,
it is true.
Or even
maybe
next week.
hold off, send it in early August. So,
What you said, after the 15th of August,
After the 13th.
13th. Okay.
I mean, our third Monday would be the 18th. That would.
I know, but because it's a special meeting, it doesn't actually have to be on the third Monday, which is why we were going to send out many different potential dates.
Yeah.
Okay.
I should
Okay.
be able.
We'll
That's
try.
helpful.
Okay,
I'll jump on no matter where I am. I could be
yeah.
hundreds, thousands of miles away.
Okay.
I always carry my computer, so.
Okay.
you know.
I will definitely be available, whatever day you pick.
Yeah, just pick a date.
Appreciate it.
Whatever you need.
We'll
we
try.
got you.
Yes, but I also understand what Barbara is saying. It is very
Yeah.
hard to, you know, commit to a date in the summer.
Happy to help. We
Thank
got
you.
you.
Thank you. Is there-
Where do you live now?
I'm still living with you.
You're not.
I'm right next to the supermarket. Sofia, oh, well, we see you we go there every day.
Oh, I don't shop there, but I live upstairs.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, yeah,
We're all
set.
We're all set.
We're just working through some ideas.
Just having fun over there. Okay.
And so we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
So we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I
I
can.
think we should be adjourned. Yes. Oh, motion to adjourn the meeting.
Here, here.
Great. Thank you, everybody.